What if you could decide how to spend a part of your local government's budget? What kind of initiatives would you propose? What kind of projects would you like to implement in your neighborhood? Today, we're in Edinburgh to take a closer look at how participatory budgeting works in Scotland. We're talking with experts and politicians about this process.
So I think 2017 is a good starting point. Participatory budgeting is actually, the foundations are laid within the Community Empowerment Scotland Act of 2015. In 2017, councils agreed and they committed that they would allocate at least 1% of their total budgets using participatory budgeting.
In Scotland, a few years ago, the national government and then the organisation that represents local government across Scotland agreed that at least, and I want to stress that word, at least 1% of local authority budgets will be allocated through PB. So it's a starting point rather than a ceiling. Although, depending on who you talk to, some people will assume that that's the max rather than the minimum.
It's a continual progression, I think, is the best way to understand the 1% target. And councils will be approaching it differently, and also it may change year to year as well, depending on the broader financial and political context as well.
But in terms of the amount of money and the challenges that people want to see PB addressing, like inequalities, like socioeconomic development, the development of community economies, climate action, all kinds of things, it's going to require more money, of course.
The COVID-19 pandemic deeply affected participatory budgeting processes everywhere, and Scotland was no exception. Distance requirements increased the use of digital tools, and the economic crisis shifted citizen priorities when it comes to allocating resources at the very local level.
The pandemic had a clear impact in forcing us to become more creative and more engaged online.
The pandemic was a great leveller. None of us were used to working online in that way, so we were all learning how to use these online platforms together. So whether you were a member of staff or a service user, nobody had any more advantage. You were all learning together, and that was a fantastic part of that process, that there were a group of about 20 of us from very different backgrounds, all kind of worked together, did training together on Zoom, got to know each other.
Most people now have had to develop a sense of digital citizenship, and there are some risks and there are some shortcomings and pitfalls that come with that, and there's more work that needs to be done on digital equalities. But I think it's fair to say that more people appreciate the value of online spaces as well as the limitations, and that's going to allow us to combine those things more creatively.
Even where participatory budgeting is more developed, it still largely depends on the will of political actors to share power with the community and to support citizens carrying out this process with the right tools and resources.
I think PB is important everywhere, not just in Leith, but we don't get enough money to resource the project. We get money to give to people that have applied, but there's hardly any money to resource. So when we got posters this year, we're running an infrastructure project for the trams through Leith, and the tram team made special posters that went all on the tram works, and they paid for that. So we managed to get them to cover some of our promotional costs. But we have to find pennies and scrape money out of budgets for that. So I would like to see, as well as a 1% budget, a proper budget for resourcing, and I would like to see the council staff that work really, really hard on this, because of their commitment to PB in that project, be much better resourced as well.
For some political leaders, not for all, but for many political leaders, they sometimes think about power as a zero-sum game. If I share power, I lose power. But we can also think about power in a more productive, generative way. And what I mean by that is that sometimes by sharing power, you generate power that you didn't have. And this is what PB does. PB mobilizes all kinds of communities of place, practice, identity, and interest in order to tackle a range of issues, to develop initiatives, to put forward programs, services, and all kinds of ideas. And in doing so, is generating power that wasn't there before, is generating legitimacy and capacity that weren't there before.
I don't think political leaders like sharing either power or money, to be honest. Particularly with the community, the needs and wants of the community are often quite divergent from the needs and wants of political leaders. So it's quite a difficult sell. You will get agreement theoretically, but in practice it can be quite difficult to get them to agree to letting go of that control to other people.
That's all from Scotland for now. Keep following our coverage on participatory democracy on our website.